think we're recording. So, I'll start off with a good morning or a good afternoon or evening, whenever anyone is watching this. This is the Questionnaires Presentation by me, Trey Folkman.
And then me, Connor Albright.
Let's just get right into it. The first thing we got to do is move my face. Hopefully, it's not covering anything. Okay. And then we got to talk about what questionnaires are. So obviously that's a pretty lengthy and descriptive summary of what a questionnaire is. So let's jump through this one piece at a time. And if we go to the first section of the questionnaire, this is basically just your cookie cutter definition of what a questionnaire is. What I'm sure all of you have probably heard or know what a questionnaire is. It's just a series of questions, opened or closed, that are designed to be administered to stakeholders of various kinds. I mean, I'm sure everyone has seen a questionnaire or either taken part in a questionnaire. They probably know what is a questionnaire at a base level. So this next section is kind of more the purpose of a questionnaire, which again, I'm sure everybody probably knows what the purpose of questionnaires are. They're an attempt to elicit responses to gather information on a project or whatever they're designed to gather information on, which is why they're part of the elicitation process, because they're eliciting responses. But if we move on to the next section of the summary, this is where it gets a little bit more complex, because now we're not really dealing with questionnaires as themselves, but we're dealing with kind of the questions of a questionnaire. And these are important in the fact that they need to be engineered specifically and formulated, created specifically, so that the data that you're getting back from the stakeholders is good data. As you can see, you don't want redundant or irrelevant information being gathered, because then it's not really helping you determine any of your requirements, which is what the purpose of the elicitation process is. So when we move on to this last section, which is also a more deep dive into the questionnaires and specifically who's participating in questionnaires, you're going to want to make sure that the questionnaires are being administered to people that have a stake in the project, so stakeholders. And not only stakeholders, but stakeholders that understand the scope and the domain of the project. So when they're answering the questions, which, as we previously stated before, are engineered with that domain and that scope in mind, as to not get bad information, they know what they're answering. They know the answers they need to be giving based on the scope and domain of the project. And so that's just your basic definition of a questionnaire, down from the general, what it is and how it's administered and who should be taking it and what kind of questions should be asking. Now, if we move on to how you do a questionnaire, I suppose would be the best wording for it. We kind of take all that and we put it together, right? So the first step is to devise the questions. And as I already touched on before, these questions need to be well formulated with the scope and domain of the project in mind. Next, the questions, well, I guess that's 1 and 2. Yeah, that's your questions. They need to be formulated correctly again. And then third would be the participants need to understand the domain and the scope as well. And they need to be selected with that in mind and selected for their stakeholder role, so that they're a part of the project, essentially. And then next step would be to administer the questionnaire, have people take it, and then finally the last step would obviously be to get all the questionnaires back, gather the data, analyze it, and see some of the responses that were elicited from the stakeholders and the information that you've gathered. And then Connor will take the next sections.
Yeah, so some advantages for questionnaires is that it really just helps information get gathered quickly. So you're able to get a lot of information from different stakeholders. It's really good, just a good way to get like good general information. You can use this like an informational checklist on all the information that you're like trying to see. So if you know like trying to like figure out some just general questions about like the essential requirements on it, you can just quickly get those um, figured out and just like get that foundation for what else you need to like farther dive into during like the litigation process and looking at those different techniques to go through. Um, but it does have disadvantages as well in there. Some of the disadvantages is that you're not really able to follow up with anybody, or you can like follow up, but it's difficult. There's no easy way to take a questionnaire and just follow up on who took it. Um, so it's like very like yes or no. Like you have some like more open-ended questions, you get a little bit more information, but it's not like a very deep way to get information. There's no easy way to expand or investigate into that extra information that you need. Um, Also, if like participants don't understand everything 100%, there's no way to really ask for clarification on those questions. So that can change the results if they're not clear enough in the way the questions are presented. And then along with that, there's just no way to deal with misunderstandings in the questionnaire. And like questions on questionnaire, they can take a lot of time to just figure out the best question. So if you don't do it effectively, it could end up taking a lot more time than other techniques if you are taking too long trying to figure out the questions effectively.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in real fast, sorry, Connor.
No, you're good.
You see a lot of these advantages and disadvantages have to do with time, and that's one of the main things about questionnaires is they're supposed to be a fast, rapid response kind of thing. You send them out to a whole bunch of people, and you want a whole bunch of data back in a relatively short period of time, which is why in the advantages section you saw that it provides a good foundation for the elicitation process. It's not supposed to be an end game type of thing, but more of just like a beginning. You start, you get a lot of data quickly from a lot of stakeholders, and if it's not quick, it's not efficient, and it's not really giving you that base. So when we talk about time a lot, that's one of the more important aspects, and I just want to touch on that. So
Um, and that goes into a lot of the effectiveness of questionnaires. When they're used correctly, they can be very effective, and efficient, and you get a lot of information from the questionnaires. But when it's not used correctly, then it can be confusing and not time effective. So that's why there's a lot of different keys to effective and not effective questions, which we're going to go through now. The first main thing is just that questions are fairly easily understood. That way, anybody taking the questionnaire will be able to understand and answer those questions easily. And also, you want those questions to have like a complete understanding or formulated with like an understanding of the project domain. You don't want to ask like a question that's not actually going to be useful later on when you're trying to find the requirements in the litigation process. And you just want to make sure also people in doing the questionnaire, you don't want just random people. You want to make sure that people doing it are actually going to be stakeholders, people that the end product that you're trying to make will help, instead of somebody that it might not, like their opinion might not matter as much for the end result. And they also want to like randomize answer orders, because if you don't randomize the answer orders, then there could be skewed of people clicking like a certain answer. So you want to make sure everything is not biased in that way. It, again, like as we talked about before, you just want to be a quickly collect it quickly and be able to analyze quickly. That way, like it's just not taking as much time, because questionnaires are supposed to be that quick and effective way to gather information. And you just need to use it in those early stages of the litigation process. If you wait too long to use it, then it won't be as effective as if you used it in the beginning. And then as far as non-effective questionnaires, they'll be this gathering a lot of irrelevant information, so information that you don't need, then it's not going to do as much to help you. If you're having like way too many answer choices on a closed-ended question, that's just going to draw more confusion, and it's going to take away from the questionnaire. You want to just keep it short, like simple, as far as like the question and answers really help. If there's a lot of answer choices possibilities, it might be easier to just make it an open-ended question. That way, the the stakeholder taking the questionnaire will easily be able to think of their own answer and put it in there that way. And then also, like, sometimes using way too many closed-ended questions might take away from the benefit of possible open-ended questions in it. So you want to make sure you have the right ratio between open and closed-ended questions for the particular questionnaire, which will change depending on what you're looking at and what you need in that situation. And then if the questions are just like hard to read or unclear, that is just going to make it more difficult to understand the whole questionnaire and go through it. And then also you want to make sure you distribute it to a large amount of stakeholders. This isn't something you just want to send to one or two people to look at, because then it'll be just more effective to do like a different litigation technique, like just go through like have an interview with them or something like that, instead of doing like a questionnaire. It's supposed to be like to a large amount of people to get a large amount of data back. And if you just use it too late, then it won't have that effectiveness as well.
So this is the questionnaire that we came up with, and we were able to administer this to a decent group of people that were categorized as potential users, which will be a good stakeholder for in the context of our hiking app that we're developing as a class. So we got a lot of information back from all those people based on these questions that you see, and these are some of the questions that we thought would give us a good understanding of what kind of user interface they want, what kind of features and technical things that they would like to see on the application. And if you look at the next slide, here's some of the results. And Connor, do you want to take that, or you want me?
I can go ahead and take that. So all the results from the questionnaire that we used and had results from show that users really like it. When you can see like hikes that have been done with friends, like you want to be able to share that stuff and have it be open, and that'll really make the app usable and people like that. And you want to be able to record hikes they've completed, so you can kind of see a list maybe on the app, like I've done this, this, and this, or check marks maybe on the map, something like that, so people can really see what they've done in the past. Kind of shows that feeling of accomplishment when you finish a hike and you can see that on there. And you'll be able to see the pictures of the hike first, and then see the description and read the description afterwards. It's very useful. So obviously when you go on a hike, you want to see what you're doing, what the view is, what the end goal of the hike is. And then it's kind of nice to be able to read a description on if it's actually something you want to do or not. So it's they like to see the picture first and then be able to read that description afterwards. They like having a difficulty rating on there. That way you know that if this hike's gonna be too hard or too easy, maybe just say like a star rating or something like that. That or just 1 out of 5 on difficulty to show how hard the hike will end up being for them. And then just also having the location track just when the app is active on the application. So you have the location tracking feature to see where you're at compared to the hike, and be able to just do that when you are active on the application.
Yeah, and if I could touch on a few things too. The first one, the ability to share hikes that they have done with friends. I got a lot of feedback from that. People really like that aspect. And they just thought it was really unique, and they haven't seen hiking apps that have that, and they thought that it was a nice little one-way shop instead of trying to, because you see people take pictures of their hikes and stuff and post them on Instagram and things, and they thought it was cool that it was kind of just a one-way. You go on a hike from this app and you can share from this app. So that's one thing they really liked. And the second thing would be that the difficulty ratings, most of the answers were of the vital option. So if I go back, you can see some of the answers are how important would you consider, and the first option is vital. A lot of them think difficulty ratings are a vital feature in this application, because they really just want to know for their skill set whether they're able to take this hike or not. So just a few little intricate details there, and I think that is it. These are our references, and that's it.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you guys. Let me see if I can stop.